The solution in standard medicine is like always a prescription. It's never a lifestyle change. I think it is a potential that most people could stop taking a number of the prescription drugs that they're taking.
Many doctors are experts on medicine. They're not experts on health. Did you get vaccinated for COVID?
In California, if you were vaccinated, you could be put into a lottery for like $35 million or something like that. When the hell has the government ever given me a free ticket to a lottery for millions of dollars? That should be an eye-opener for anyone. The solution in standard medicine is like always a prescription. It's never a lifestyle change.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Kaizen. And today I have Dennis Echelbarger. And Dennis is someone I'm really excited to have to the podcast because he has been on a huge transformational journey for the last year. So originally, Dennis and I met because we were neighbors, which is really funny. We lived down the street from one another and we met one day. And then I ended up supporting him through a career transition. So he was a successful entrepreneur doing something he didn't love in the mattress business. And he decided, fuck all that. I want to help people change their lives through health. And he's a high-level health coach who has had a meteoric rise over the last year. His videos have reached millions of people. And what I love about Dennis is his approach to health is really focused on health, not just medicalizing everything. He has a really strong mastery over holistic health principles and the simple foundations of living an aligned, healthy life that help people with, in his practice, specifically autoimmune disorders, but in general with just living in a way that's simple and grounded in firm principles. And I also respect Dennis tremendously for just recognizing when he's out of alignment and committing to living a life of alignment and health in the physical body, as well as a mentally and emotionally clear life too. So today, we're going to be talking about how to be healthy in a sick world. We're going to be talking about the social and cultural problems with the overdiagnosing and medicalization of American society. And we're going to be talking about the ways that you can make simple changes to live a better life. So, Dennis, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Cool. It's a pleasure to have you, bro.
Yeah, back in Cali, just not on the same street.
Yeah. See, so for context, you just got back from Bali. And how long were you there?
10 months.
10 months. So, talk to me a little bit about the journey to decide to even go to Bali and what that represented in your life, because I think that'll be interesting backstory for where you are and where you've been.
Yeah, definitely. So from 2017 to 2022, end of 2022, I was in California. Came here with the idea to start a business and be successful, and things were going well until, COVID happened. And then I was pretty much out of work, losing money hand over fist for about a year and a half. And then I circled around with you kind of at the tail end of COVID, when I was starting to get things going again with the business. And at that point, I was working a ton again, but I realized how unhappy I was with the business and everything that it entailed. And it didn't align with my purpose. So I decided to exit that. And again, you had helped me kind of through that little journey there. And then I felt like I needed to get away from California. I felt like it was the business, a mixture of like the business, the stress of just life in California, which in the city and running around, the grind that everyone, the American dream, as some would call it, was just like, it was just taking a toll on me. And I feel like I need an escape from that. So I wanted to just travel somewhere. I didn't know where that was going to be at first. Of course, you see all these beautiful places all over the internet, and Bali was one of them that had come up several times. And it was, they had a lot of surfing, which was something that I got into during COVID because, again, I couldn't do anything else. The gyms were closed. My business was closed. A lot of restaurants were closed. So it's like, the one thing I could do was take a surfboard into the ocean. So I started getting into surfing, and I knew Bali had really good surf, really good weather. I love like the simple lifestyle of pretty much just running around naked on an island. All my vacations to the Caribbean and Puerto Rico and all those areas over there, I've always loved it. It's such a good feeling. In fact, being from the Midwest, all the snowbirds like go down to Florida. It's just like, you get the good feeling of being covered by sun around the ocean. So I figured like that lifestyle somewhere else in the world would fit me very well. And it did. It served me great for the 10 months that I was there. I kind of got myself established, I suppose, with like you had mentioned, with creating content and learning an entirely new industry, if you will. Speaking to a camera, editing videos. I learned everything from pretty much A to Z in my time in Bali. Um, and then yeah, that just kind of like helped me follow my purpose in life and continuing to help people with health conditions. Again, like you mentioned, a lot of autoimmune conditions. And and yeah, now I'm back in America.
One of the interesting things about you is that you were already successful in one realm and you transitioned to a completely different space. And I think a lot of people who feel like they're successful in one area feel like they have to stay in that area. So I'm curious, what gave you the clarity of purpose about not just what you wanted to leave, but what you wanted to go to with this health coaching and helping people with autoimmune disorders? Like, what was your personal connection to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people, when you find success in something, um, especially if you like achieve at a very high level at that task, whatever it might be. For me in my last business specifically, it was just essentially sales. Um, and I knew that if I could like sell something, you can sell anything as long as you like believe in the product or service. And again, at that time where I had been kind of weighed down by all the emotions of distress and doing something that didn't align with me. I wanted to do something that was driven by purpose. And for me, I knew that there was a number of other coaches out there that were doing very, very well. And I knew that like if it was possible for somebody else, that it could be possible for me too. So I think, people that are successful in one area and you know feel that that's not their purpose, like if you can do it once, and this is how I viewed it, if you can do it once, you can do it again. Like I came to California with nothing. The idea of like starting this business, in fact, to get into it, you needed like $20,000, and I think at the time I had six. And in fact, that number was even shy because when I came to California, I pretty much had to give away 6 grand to get a place to stay because they wanted 3 months of rent at the same time plus security deposit. And so like the money that I had was pretty much gone right when I got here. So then I had to take out loans and all that stuff and figure that out. So it's like I knew like going through all of those struggles, if I did it once, I could do it again. And I think that's like really important for people to know. And everyone often like worries about all these financial issues and everything. And it's like, again, if you do it once, like you can do it again. So it just takes like one breakthrough, I believe, to really open the doors for pretty much everything. Because if you can do it once, I've repeated this a few times, but if you can do it once, you can certainly do it again.
Mhm, mhm. So it sounds like you had just a general trust in yourself because you had already taken a risk in moving out to California, only having 6K to your name, using all of that, then needing to double down on yourself by taking out loans to get the 20K that you needed to start the mattress business.
Yeah,
So because that about a risk that you took, you had confidence in your ability to take further risks.
yeah, certainly,
Yeah.
certainly. And I don't think by any means that moving to Bali was as big of a risk as it was moving to California initially. I mean, obviously the cost of living there is significantly cheaper, as opposed to California, and food's cheaper. It's just cheaper, like all around, significantly cheaper. But California has like a lot of like-minded people. I mean, actually, just the diversity here is insane. Like you get a little bit of everything, and you can pretty much get anything you want within a 20-30 minute drive. Maybe a little more if you want to do like, surfing and skiing, and it's all here. It's really all here. So that is one thing that I love about California.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think this is actually a really important and inspiring point because there's something about risk taking that makes it get easier with time. Like
Hmm.
the risk itself might be relatively more or less risky, but the attitude and the mindset that you develop from taking a risk once carries over into future risks. So it's almost like that first risk is the hardest.
Yeah.
Like that first breakthrough threshold point is the hardest. This time, though, it seems like it was more purpose driven, right? Because there was not just the business opportunity in creating this health coaching business that you've created, there was also the opportunity to do something that mattered to you. So, why did this matter to you? Because I think a lot of the time when people are seeking purpose, it's unclear to them what their purpose is, but it's pretty clear that you found something that is aligned with you.
Yeah, this is a really good question, and it kind of developed for me through my last business. So in my last business, I worked with a lot of schools, so public schools for the most part, because I did fundraising, so they needed money, right? A lot of the private schools, especially out here, have plenty of money. And so I was working with a lot of public schools, and there was one day where, every week I would talk to hundreds of students. The teacher was there, and like I was like in the class, almost like a teacher for a couple periods of the day. And there was one moment, and this is it, there's kind of two factors here. So there's like the entrepreneurial aspect, and then there's the like the health aspect. So the entrepreneurial aspect came from I was talking to this group of kids. I forget what school it was, but it was a school probably like 30 minutes from the ocean. And I made this comment about like it was about something about like you guys have all like been to the beach, right? Like you guys live in California, 30 minutes from the beach. And like none of them had been to the beach. Dude,
Whoa.
I was mind blown. I was like, I would say maybe like 10% of the class. And I was just like, it would just like hit me, like, cause I just assumed it. And I just like, holy crap, man. Like these kids haven't been 20 miles from their, like where they're staying. And that just kind of put things in perspective because like, when you're driving around and you're doing all this stuff like day to day, the grind, you just kind of figure that everyone has it like maybe not as good as you, but like, I don't know. To me, not going to the beach was like just so far fetched. Like me and my family would drive 40 minutes, like when I lived back home to go to the beach like a few times a month, or at least a couple times a month. So I'd figured like, by like whatever these kids were, 14 years old, 15, 16, like they had been to the beach once and they hadn't. So there was that aspect. And then um, I just wanted to like be able to like help and encourage people to like chase their dreams in that sense because like I mean, at that point, if you hadn't been to the beach and you're 20 minutes away from it, 20, 30 minutes away, like you're probably not thinking that anything is possible. Like, and it's just like you just have to put yourself in a position to kind of open doors. And there's a number of ways to go about that. And perhaps that's something we can get into a little bit later. But then the other aspect was the health. And I used to do bodybuilding and all that stuff. So when there was, high schoolers, freshmen, sophomores, when they were like interested at all in health, or like gaining muscle specifically, I would say it was generally like the younger boys. They would like they would like make comments about like, dude, like how much can you bench press and stuff like that. And to me, like, I would help them out like after class would be like, dude, eat some chicken and rice or like give them like the basics. Um, and that kind of tied into like what I would see outside of the classroom in these schools. And this is like the I think like the most impactful thing that happened to me and is I'm just seeing like everyone knows like American health is like deteriorating, but all the money that we spend on like pharmaceutical companies, healthcare, all that stuff is skyrocketing. So like we have costs and expenses going like this and like health going down at the other angle. So I saw that in like a firsthand experience. Like I knew my condition and everything around that, but like when I saw it in the public specter, especially like public schools where not everyone was as fortunate as I was, and like what these kids specifically were getting for free, like the school lunches, they call it free or reduced lunch for like a lot of kids. And there's actually like websites where you can look up online to kind of see um what percentage of kids are receiving like free or reduced lunch. Kind of just tells like how much money is at that school essentially, or how much money is like not in that community, I suppose. And that was like one of the things that we would factor in for fundraising is like, does the school need the money or do they have it? So you can look at like free or reduced lunch and the schools that some schools in California are like 80 or 90% like free or reduced lunch, which means like the parents they're generally getting breakfast for free at school, and they're getting lunch for free at school. And once you see what they're being fed and you see physically, I don't have any access to these kids' medical records or anything like that, but you see what they're being fed and you just like factor everything together and then assume like what they're probably eating at home too. And you can just see physically that they're not in great health. That's where I was like, man, I need to like start saying something because this is only going to get worse. Like, and it is like currently. So yeah, it was, from between the kids that had like made the small comments which was very little, to me compared to like what I saw walking around at the schools. I was just like, man, like if I can somehow help a few of these, either generally it's going to be parents that see my content be just based on my metrics and who's looking at my content. But, if I can like have some parents see this and like, hey, like maybe I just make this simple change so that my kid is like a little bit healthier and doesn't have to deal with diabetes and obesity and all these issues the rest of their life because of what they were fed at school and at home. So that was like one of the biggest factors is so in my last business, I just saw the health. And I would assume that's for a majority of America, especially like the lower income side, of course. And yeah, if like somehow I can get in front of those people, just like wake them up a little bit, whether one video catches attention on this aspect or another, it's like I just want to have some sort of impact there so that some kid, and again, I had like a very good upbringing. Like I was very fortunate, Catholic school, all that fun stuff. Played hockey. We ate well, like, and I still was like diagnosed with this autoimmune disease. So it's like, these other kids that are not eating well at all, not doing any after school activities, maybe they're playing a sport or two, but that's not going to save your life. Yeah, like they're just like set up for failure, man, from a physical level. And that kind of cycles over into everything. Like your health isn't good, then you lack clarity in your mind, and you're maybe lack clarity in conversations with people and in every other aspect of life. So yeah, that's kind of like where it evolved for me. And I just wanted that purpose to go on and help other people with their health, but even on a bigger scale, somehow like find out how to like make a massive impact, whether it's like changing school lunches or whatever that might be. That's a big feat there, but hey, anything's possible.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a few things in the story.
Hmm.
One, there was just an awareness of your purpose by looking at your own experiences.
Hmm.
I think a lot of the time we mythologize purpose like it's this thing that has to come down from God and it strikes you like a lightning bolt one day. But you just looked at your experience talking to these kids who were 20 minutes from the beach but had never gone to it, seeing what was going on with free and reduced lunches and seeing the quality of food was so bad,
Hmm.
seeing these kids were physically unhealthy, like overweight, or just you can just see if their life force is just like drained and they're like little kids, which is terrifying.
Yeah, it's sad.
And I think a lot of the time people see problems that they want to solve, but they don't view themselves as the person who can solve them. But it sounds like you found your purpose from viewing yourself as someone who could make an impact.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, there's definitely some other people doing it, like out there trying to like change that the whole like free lunch kind of side of things. Which again, like that would be huge if we could change that, but that's pretty much across America. Um, but yeah, I would say that's pretty spot on. Like, like recognizing things through your journey, like what you had mentioned, like God's just gonna come down and like, here's your purpose. Um, I mean, I still am like learning that every day. And I think like most people are that have accepted that, maybe you have like your basics, but then like things can evolve from that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, this podcast is an evolution of my purpose. And
Hmm.
I think the cool thing about purpose is once you start, it gets revealed to you very, very quickly. Once you
Hmm.
start actually creating and not just consuming.
Yep.
And I've seen you actively creating. I mean, you're being humble about it, but I saw you at under 1,000 Instagram followers to now over 100,000 in like a year, which is
Yeah.
incredible growth. So clearly you've struck a chord with people. And what I've noticed about the way that you present these health issues is you have a scientific approach to analyzing the facts around human health conditions, and you provide really practical takeaways. So you marry the science with the practical application. I'm curious, how do you discern what's true though? Because especially when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry or nutritional info, it feels like there's so much agenda. It feels like everyone is you can't even trust certain studies because you're not even sure like who's funding the study. So I'm curious from your perspective as someone who's doing this full time,
Mhm.
how do you know what sources to listen to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because you have to filter through a lot, and for me, a lot of it started from like personal experience. So like, what had worked for me, and that's where it started. And then to I guess kind of have a voice on like social media. I can tell everyone what worked for me. I found through my experience on like posting on social media, like when you put out like with studies and whatnot, it just makes it just you just gain more trust from that. And it's like you did your research, you know, hopefully you've done, you know, looked at more than just one source. Um, and so yeah, I'm speaking through like personal experience, what has worked for other people as well, and then, you know, scientific research as well. So and that's the thing, that's the like amazing thing about the human body is it's like a little bit different for everyone. Like, you know, even just like for cancer, for example, one of my followers like recommended a book to me, and it was like I think it was called like Curing Cancer with Carrots.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, like they told me to read this book. Like, you should read this book. It's amazing. And I was like, okay, like there's tons of, you know, tons of things have worked to cure cancer and tons of things have failed. And uh it was just like really interesting to have somebody recommend me a book about carrots that cures cancer. And I was like kind of mind blown by it. But it's actually very interesting. I think people should look into that realm if they have cancer. I'm not saying go eat carrots and your life is going to be perfect. But there's something behind it. And I think the other thing is called like the Gerson method for cancer, and I believe it's Gerson. And essentially, it's just putting people on like a majority of like plant-based diets, um, and doing a lot of juices and coffee enemas and some pretty wild stuff. But it's worked for like a number of people. It's also failed for some too. And then so has like, you know, chemo and radiation. So uh yeah, everything works for like different people. So like certainly what have has worked for me and some of my clients might not also work for somebody else. So I think like giving those perspectives, and you know, the people love seeing the science too. Like, oh, this guy like did his research. So a lot of times I'll implement that. And sometimes like I'll show like conflicting like sciences, like, you know, the biggest one, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is like the plant-based diet is the best for you, and then over here people are like the animal-based diet is like the best diet for you. So you know, there's generally gonna be research that goes like both ways. Um so so yeah, like, and I think taking that into consideration based upon like the plant and animal thing that I just had mentioned, like when I speak with people, and it's funny too, because like my audience is like probably more vegans than like carnivore based people, because like I show and tell that plants are like plants can heal you. Like that's a fact. But so can meat. But for some reason I've just like I've gained like a big a lot of attention from like the vegan world. And I'm not a vegan, it's like some people may believe, but, like, I try to show stuff that I eat eggs and whatnot and meat here and there. Um, but yeah, like, if you want like, when I'm working with somebody, like, if they're a vegan, I'm not gonna say, like, "Go eat meat," because that's, like, what's gonna change your life, and, like, somebody that loves meat, it's like, you don't necessarily have to, like, cut out meat. Like, you maybe just have to eat a better quality of it. Maybe, like, the form of dairy you're eating isn't like the best kind that you could be eating. So there's kind of like levels to it, right? So I think that there's a lot to consider, and you don't want to like have to flip somebody's life completely upside down to help them like live healthier. In fact, I think a lot of times like that stress, if you're not liking what you're eating, like dude, that sucks. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's not gonna help everything. In certain situations you might have to like go on a diet and cut out cake and Twinkies and everything like that if you have diabetes and you want to do something about it. But but yeah, that's kind of like that in a nutshell, is like kind of take what you're already doing and see if you can make it better. And then if you can't, then you might have to make some massive changes at that point.
So before the show, we were talking a little bit about my journey with being vegan.
Yeah.
And first, it sounded like there was something you wanted to say. So let's hear what you had to say, and then I'll give the story.
Yeah, so I remember we we went to, I think it was Hermanitos?
Yeah,
The li
A Mexican place, I think.
yeah, in
Yeah.
Sawtell, and, Mexican place, like, they eat a lot of tacos and stuff, and I don't remember if it was, like, when we sat down or before we went there, like, you made a comment about, like, "Oh, I'm vegan now," and I was just like, "Hey," I'm in LA, a lot of people are vegan, like, I do your thing, but I was just like, "Oh, I didn't know he was a vegan." And then actually, like, I think you made, I don't know if you, like, posted about it
Mhm.
or something, but I think you posted about it, like, you said something about, like, eating meat again and, like, having, like, morning erections and, like, yeah, like, I don't know, remember, like, walk me through that because that's what I remember.
Yeah, so, I used to just eat an omnivorous diet, but I just wasn't very healthy. And to your point about, like, sometimes you could just make things better rather than shift everything around. I was of the belief that's like, I need to just change everything. So at first I started with a 30-day experiment of eating plant-based, and I felt better.
Okay.
And I assumed it was just because, oh, plant-based is just the best.
Yeah, you
And
probably felt a lot lighter,
I
right?
felt lighter, I felt more energy, I just felt good.
Yep.
So I decided, all right, well, I've been doing this for 30 days. Why not just continue it? And I continued doing that and I felt good enough. And then one day I went to a holistic health practitioner and he did some research on me and it suggested that actually for me, a plant based diet is not ideal. And the reason it even came up is because I had started having cravings for burgers. So I was like, why am I having craving for burgers? Because at that point I'd been vegan for like a good year and a half.
Oh, wow.
So after he suggested that maybe plant-based is actually not ideal for me, I had a burger, and then the next day I woke up with morning wood. And then I was like,
That was a
"All
good
right,"
burger.
I was like, "This is the clearest evidence that I should be eating meat." But it just goes to the point, like, I had been telling myself this story that, "Oh, I need to change everything," rather than maybe I just needed to eat high quality meat and
Mhm,
stop eating so much takeout. I was eating a lot of takeout at the time. And then I don't regret the journey of being plant-based, but I fucking love eating meat.
mhm.
And once I started eating meat, not only was my libido better, I just was enjoying my diet more.
Yeah, and
And
that's huge.
it's huge. But here's the thing, like I used to be so disconnected from my body. It was hard for me to tell how things were affecting me. So I you're someone who you said, you grew up with a good, like, health conscious upbringing, you ate good foods, you played sports, so you're very connected to your body. We'll also talk about your experimentation with curing your own autoimmune disorder too.
Mhm.
But when someone's not connected well to their body and it's hard for them to even know how different things are affecting them, how can they even start making healthy changes in their life?
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask you something on that really quick because,
Sure.
I've never gone a year vegan.
Mhm.
Very short period of time, maybe 30 days at most. Actually even less than that. But because you said you were, like, very disconnected with your body, and, this is, like, something like in Ayurvedic, practice and medicine, a lot of those people are vegan or they don't eat meat. And they are very, very, very connected to their body. So do you
Mm,
think that at that time where you were vegan, do you think that, or do you feel like you were more connected to your body when you were
mhm.
eating only plants, or is there
Yeah.
no association there?
It's a good question because the reason I decided to stick with the diet was because I did feel better.
Mhm.
But I think from the place I was coming from, any sort of intentional dietary change would have made me feel better.
Okay.
And what I didn't have was a sensitivity to discern between, like, oh, it's meat causing this versus no, I'm just like being more conscious about everything that I put in my body. And now that I'm more conscious, like after a single meal, if I eat something shitty, I can tell.
Mhm.
Um, s- and so maybe being plant based for a while helped me regain sensitivity. I was doing a lot of healing at that time too. So there were a
Yeah.
whole bunch of different changes I was making. Um, but now I don't really need rules. That's what it is. I used to need rules for how I would eat and live my life, and now I just have sensitivity, so I don't need rules. I can just tell what's going on.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And but back then, it didn't even make sense to, like, what do you mean? Just listen to your body? Like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, it literally didn't make any sense
A
to
lot of
me.
people are still like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're very disconnected.
Mhm.
And that's just like happens when you, I think, just go through the motions and you just wake up, like eat cereal, you know, a food that's arguably not even food. And then you do that, and then you just like grab fast food or what your Burger King or your DoorDash or whatever for lunch, and then throw a microwave meal or whatever in the dinner, like or in the microwave for throw a microwave meal in the microwave for dinner. And like yeah, you just like are going through the motions, and there's like a lot of science and research that just shows like you can actually live longer by doing things with your hands, like making and creating your own food, and like preparing it, especially with like people, like family, friends, eating dinner or eating dinner together as a family. There's like a lot of like wild research like that like I never would have even like imagined. And then I started like doing a lot of research, and I was like, well, wow, there's like definitely something to this. Gardening too, like makes you live longer. Just like the intention of like preparing your food and like eating it with other people is like so much more powerful than grabbing something from a guy that drops it off at your door and eat it, or just popping something in a microwave. So it yeah, that was like something super surprising to me. I was like, food is food. Like it gives me energy. It's either sometimes I get more energy from better food or not. But yeah, there's like some pretty interesting stuff like that.
Hmm. That's super cool. And it actually speaks to some of what I like about your message and your work, which is I think intuitively a lot of people understand, like, yeah, I feel like if I'm preparing my food with my own hand and getting it from my own garden, even if it's the same exact food, it should have a different impact on my life. But oftentimes I find that in like these more like woo-woo circles, it's like, oh, the energy of the food is better. Which and maybe there's something to that, but especially the past version of me been like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what does the science mean?
Yeah.
But you seem to connect the science with the actual experiential impact. So when you're trying to put together different concepts and understand some of these more holistic principles around health, how do you generally approach it? Is it like you ask yourself a question about based on some experience you've had and then you start to look up research around that, or how do you approach it?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you start making content, especially, you're like, what the hell am I going to talk about? And then like you have to deliver it in a way that like resonates with people, and sometimes like you got to have like a hook and like grab attention. And there's definitely some truth to that. But I was just doing like a lot of reading, a lot of like podcasts, a lot of like videos, just like consuming, and taking notes on everything. And then if something like piqued my interest or had like resonated with me, because I have like my list of notes of like things that I like want to talk about. But like when I read something or come across something, I'll write it down or save the URL or whatever it is, and then like I'll find a way to talk about that, whether it's like in the same light, in a different light. Um, I'll just do like a lot of research and come across things or past experiences I've had, or the way that I know things that other people are struggling with. Like, so like if I had a client and like they struggled with something that perhaps I used to struggle with as well too, then I just like kind of forgot about because it's so obsolete for me now. Then I'll bring that to the surface too. So yeah, there's a number of ways. Like sometimes like you hit like a roadblock. I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but like sometimes you're like, man, I've said everything. Like I don't have anything else to say. But then like as soon as you like get a little clarity, and you just like kind of take a step back from like content, like 10 more ideas will come to mind. So yeah, just like I don't really have a routine, and I know like all these I know there's a lot of things out there that's like, use ChatGPT to give you 10 content ideas or whatever it is. And it's like, I tried that and it's like just trash. Like if it's not like authentic and like what you feel or like what's resonating with like other people. Um, and I'll be the first to admit it. Like I definitely have just like posted stuff because I knew it was going to get views. Like sometimes they're like, man, like I'm not getting any views. Like I got to do something. So then you just like post something that way. But I find that like most of the time, like the good content comes out when I'm not trying to like work for it. It just like kind of comes authentically. Like again, like it could be a podcast, like a 2 hour long podcast, and they mention something, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that resonates with me. I haven't thought of that in so long. Um, and it's just like something that perhaps I even do like every day now, so I don't even think twice about it. So yeah, there's just like a number of ways that all of those kind of come about. I don't plan it. I don't stress it. I used to, but not anymore.
Right now, it feels like we're mentally less healthy and healthy every day. But it also feels like simultaneously there's a narrative that makes everything a mental health issue. And I watched one of your videos and you were talking about like I think it was in the DSM, so
Hmm.
the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is used in psychology to basically diagnose different pathologies and disorders.
Yep.
The number of diagnoses has like skyrocketed over the last few years.
Yeah.
And there's this interesting question of, hey, are we actually over diagnosing things? Like, are we calling everything some sort of problem when it's just sometimes like the human experience?
Yeah. I mean, very controversial topic.
Mm.
I believe we are. Um, yeah, when you just like look at so it was in the past 70 years, there's 5 times more mental health disorders. And when you look into it, when you like literally break it all down, they're prescribing like medication for people that are like gambling. Like you laugh, but it's serious. Um, and it's just like, dude, they're fine. They find, and I get it. Like some of the stuff does work, and I mentioned that, in that video too. It's like, yeah, mental health is real. Like we're struggling, like for real. But there's also people profiting from that too, which is like to me is not right. It's like looking back to like when I was in those schools, like these kids may not know it now, but like, maybe after they graduate high school, they're like, what the hell is like my life? Like what happened? Like where did this all go wrong? And then a lot of them are probably even dealing with mental health issues too. And that you can't see that physically. So I wouldn't be able to know that for sure. But yeah, I believe from all the research I do and everything, like the pharmaceutical space, like I definitely believe that there's a big push for increasing numbers and revenue for sure. And like my business background too, like that's business. Like I get it. Like I see both sides. Like you want to grow a business and you have a sick patient or person, and it's easy to write a pill and make $1 from prescribing that individual. So um some of them real? Yeah, of course. Are all of them? It's debatable.
Yeah. It's almost as if anything that is people not being happy is bad.
Yeah.
Like I don't watch TV anymore, but
Me either.
sometimes I go home and I visit my parents and I see these bullshit commercials for pharmaceutical products and they say, "Are you experiencing sadness, difficulty, frustration, anger? Like, you mean the normal range of fucking human experience? Take this pill.
Yeah.
Will help you." And then you listen to the side effects and they say the side effects at 2x speed. And it's like, this may cause sadness, anger, frustration. And it's like, you get taking a pill to get rid of this thing that's a normal part of the human experience. And it can also just introduce more of the thing that you're trying to get rid of.
Yeah. And then more problems that they'll also write more prescriptions for.
Yeah, and it's scary because I know when I've gotten to the doctor before, I remember once I wanted like a Xanax to fly, and I would never take a Xanax to fly. But back in the day, I was like, yeah, sure, take a pill, and I can just like basically pass out. It's like hopping
Yeah.
into a teleportation device. Like 12 hours later, I'm just in another country, and I remember sitting there, I was like, this is eerily easy. Like this is disturbingly easy to get a prescription just by saying, oh yeah, I just have trouble sleeping on planes
Yeah.
for this thing that like literally changes my own pharmacology.
Mhm.
So how do you think we got here? Like, and what is the solution to it?
The solution is definitely regulating like big pharma in some way, shape, or form. What that is, I have no idea. Or people just waking up and being like, I don't need a pill to get through every day of my life. I mean, I'm not saying everyone just like put their pills down and stop taking them, but I think it is a potential that most people could stop taking a number of the prescription drugs that they're taking. Um, and I get it. Like, it's really interesting once you start like reading and getting into a lot of the history of a lot of doctors. A lot of them go into that industry because they want to help people. And once you start, reading up on these doctors that have been very successful in like helping people in X, Y, and Z condition, you'll notice that a lot of them actually leave the industry and start like a private practice because while you're in the industry, it's like your job. I mean, you've been taught for 8, 10, 12 years to you have this, take this. You have this, take this. Instead of like you have this, oh, like are you exercising? Are you eating well? Are you doing anything for your mental, like your brain, your mind, like peace of mind? Like are you eliminating stress? Are you doing any of these things? And that's like where I believe like real healing is. And managing your body and your mind and actually like being aware of it as opposed to just like I don't know, I don't really want to say like a zombie, but like kind of like a zombie, like, okay, doctor, thank you. Okay, fast food, thank you. Okay, work 9 to 5, thank you. And just like you take a step back and you look at it and you're like, oh wow, like people are actually doing this. A lot of people are living like this. So yeah, I don't what's the best answer? I don't know. I think hopefully people like see other people doing it and know that it's possible. If they really want that too, some people don't want that. Some people want to keep living their comfortable life where they have their comfortable 9 to 5. They go home, they have 2 weeks of vacation, they take the drugs that their doctor tells them. They feel okay at best the rest of their life. Like, hey, if that's you, then no one can change that. And I've like had experiences like that with health conditions in my own family. It's like you can't make people do anything. They have to either hit rock bottom and want to make the change. That's really it. Like they have to want to make the change or be forced to. But I don't think that really works for people.
So what I'm hearing is people need to look at their lifestyle first and take responsibility there
Yeah,
rather than a
100%.
pill.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like there's definitely some things that like pharma's great for. Like if I got in a car accident, God forbid, leaving here, like, and I need surgery, dude, take me to a hospital. Like, am I gonna try to walk that off?
Yeah.
So I think like a lot of like emergency room, like critical care, like, obviously we're at a level in the healthcare space now today that's served millions of people. But I also think like on the flip side, mostly on the pharmaceutical side, it may be harming more than it's helping.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So we're gonna get into some touchy areas. Are you down for that?
sure.
Cool. Did you get vaccinated for COVID?
No.
No. I did,
Okay.
and I regret it.
Okay.
It's so weird because I had such a different mindset back then when I got the vaccine. I honestly I wasn't particularly scared of COVID. I was just like, oh, no big deal. I'll just take a shot and then I can have more convenience in my life. And now in hindsight, I'm like, holy shit, that's actually a bit insane. Like, I'm trusting these institutions that have demonstrably eroded any reason for me to trust them to put this thing in my body that we have no long-term studies on because we can't in an emergency scenario where there's fear and fear distorts our perception of risk. And I was a healthy man with no congenital disorders, no history of health issues, and I was just like, oh yeah, just give me that. And I think it's kind of the same mentality that we have around popping pills and taking things to just get the issue out of sight, out of mind as quickly as possible. And I remember talking to my dad. So my dad's from Ghana, and he was talking about how, yeah, in Africa, like no one was getting COVID. Like it's like, okay, how is it that in a first world country where we have access to the best medical technology in the world and our GDP per capita is literally multiples of what they have in Africa, we're freaking out about this thing, but they weren't freaking out about it. Well, I look at their lifestyle that actually is a lot healthier. They have valuable social connection. They make food with their families together. They get sun. They're moving their
Moving.
bodies. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're doing all the things naturally that we should be doing, but it's much easier to frankly disempower ourselves and say, no, I can't fix this. I need a drug. And I it's weird because it's almost like it's uncomfortable to talk about this. Like it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable to identify this.
Yeah.
But it's actually like coming from an energy of disempowerment to believe that, oh, I need to take something from someone in a white lab coat rather than change something in my life. It's like I need something outside of me constantly to fix things.
Yeah.
And I don't know the stats offhand, but I just know in my experience, I remember when I visited Ghana in 2019.
Okay.
And I had this experience. I was like, I don't feel like people are depressed or anxious here much. They have way less,
Yeah.
but they seem way more at peace with themselves. So that's just a reflection I want to offer. And I'm curious. Now it's easier to talk about like, oh, I'm not getting the vaccine, but I don't know if you were actually open about not getting the vaccine at the time. But I'm curious to hear what your experience was like
Yeah.
of COVID as someone who's very health conscious and just takes good care of himself.
Yeah. First, I want to start off like saying my experience in Bali was like very similar to potentially that of like Ghana. Like all the locals, I don't actually, I went there after COVID, so I have no idea what their like vaccine protocol was with COVID. Um, but probably like no one cared, honestly. I would assume something of that matter. But I went there, dude, and these people have like, I mean, their toilet is like a hole in the ground, like separated from their house, like an outhouse with a hole in the ground. And they also like brush their teeth in there and like, it's their bathroom. But if an American were to walk in one of those bathrooms, they would be mind blown. Like you're like, wait, what? And then their houses generally like the locals, they're like concrete walls, a lot of times no windows. Like these people have next to nothing and they're the nicest and happiest people in the world. And then I come back to America and like it's two totally different extremes. And I definitely think they're a lot mentally a lot healthier there. Physically, maybe not so much. They're still eating like a lot of like processed foods and stuff. And you can see like some people are definitely a lot like overweight and whatnot. Um, but yeah, then circling back to like 2020 and like the whole vaccine time. In fact, like you said, it's like it was uncomfortable to talk about when you first like said the question. I was like, can I say this out loud? Like, dude, like, but now that we're already into it, like I'm just gonna like I'll say everything. So I was working with well, let me back up a little bit. I thought for sure something was wrong. Like it was weird to me. Like I had already had like all these perceptions about like big pharma and um just like prescribing and telling people to take this and that. Like I always like had I think I've had that since like a very young age. Um I believe it was like my cousin. We would always go to like my grandma's house and during the summers and our parents would go to work. They would drop us off at my grandma's house. We spend the day there with our cousins. And it was my cousin. I think he was taking like Adderall like every day or like Ritalin or something like that for ADHD. And sure, yeah, he might have been like a little more energetic than the rest of us. Um, but like we played outside and did everything all day. But I always thought like from a very young age it was like really weird. Like why did like my cousin and a couple of my friends too, like why do they have to take like a pill every morning? Like I'm fine. Like it was just something that seemed off to me. Like I didn't really understand it. I was very young, but it was just I had it like in my mind like why are some people taking like a pill every day but like not me? And then even like, going through like high school and college, like everyone's taking uh those same drugs to like study for tests and stay up all night. And I think I've taken like Adderall or Vyvanse like, or a combination of those drugs maybe like less than I can count on two hands. Just because every time I did it, like there was times where in college especially, I was like, dude, I need one. I'm gonna like stay up all night and study for this test, this class I've never went to. So I would take one, but like I always felt like a zombie, man. Like sure I don't have ADHD, um, but it just always made me feel so weird. And then like connecting that to everything that I know now, it's like, man, like how many people are like going through life numbed, like not their actual self. It's like it's kind of scary, and that's where I think that we can be easily recommended or pushed to take something else. Is where like we're already like so disconnected. Like, oh, what's one more thing? Like they tell me to take, and then that brings up the vaccine. So, yeah, I felt that it was like really weird. Especially I don't know if you remember this in California, but there was like a lottery in California. If you were vaccinated, you were like you could be put into a lottery for like $35 million or something like that. And I was like, when the hell has the government ever given me a free ticket to a lottery for millions of dollars? And then like when I heard that, I was like, dude, this is just too much. Like there's just no way. And like every celebrity was talking about it on TV. And at that time, like that was I'm sure even if you don't ever watch TV, like that was the time where the world is watching TV. They're like, what's happening? Like how many people are dying? Like who's like, how are all the different ways that this can affect me? How many more shots do I have to get till I'm safe?
Mhm.
Like, don't get my fourth booster. So it was like a time where everyone was like just watching TV, and I just like saw like the influence that it had behind it, and I was like, this isn't right. Like something is off about this. Um, and now like I mean, I'm very thankful that I didn't take it, but like almost everyone in my family did. Like my brother's in the military, my sister works like in hospitals, so they all had to get it. My sister was pregnant at the time too, and she got hers, which was like very concerning because I'm on like reading the back pages, like they don't talk about of like vaccine injuries and like all this stuff happening to people that they don't really want us to know about because like they only want you to see the bright side, and that it was, I think at the time they were saying it was like 95% effective, but everyone that got the vaccine was still getting COVID. And like all these promises were made, and yeah, I don't know, I'm still like just connecting everything, like looking back to like a very young age, like I'm just like fortunate I had that mindset for whatever reason, like hey, like why are some people taking this and why are some people not? And then moving all the way forward, it's like if I think the two biggest reasons that people were dying from COVID wasn't because they were vaccinated or they weren't. It was because of they were either like obese. So like if you're overweight, you were at like, I forget what it is, like a 6 or 7 fold like chance of like being seriously impacted or dying from COVID. And then the other thing was vitamin D. So if you didn't have vitamin D, if your vitamin D was low, like you were much more likely to get sick or die from COVID. So it's like, okay, you look back at the two basic principles, like, dude, like go outside, like get some vitamin D, like move your body. And like you can withstand COVID from that. Like, yeah, I think we like overcomplicate things way too much. And it's just like, go back to the basics. Like, well, how do we get here today? How do we get here with like these lights and cameras and everything? Like, dude, we were like walking around like, we were hunter gatherers. Like it's, I don't know. For me, it's just like so basic. Like
Yeah.
we've gone too far ahead almost.
Yeah.
And there's definitely certain benefits to that, but just like bringing it all back. Like when you feel like you're just too stressed out and life is too crazy, just dial it back. Like freaking go walk in the forest. Call it forest bathing. It's cured cancer in some people too.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing, that perspective makes sense, but it doesn't make dollars, right? Because you
That's the
can't,
problem.
yeah, you can't sell just go for a walk and go outside and make meals together with your family and connect. You can sell, take this pill because there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And you need to take this pill for the rest of your life because there's something wrong with you, and there's always going to be. And I think it's actually scary that it's scary to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the scary thing. Like it's scary to think, hey, maybe most of us have everything that we need in our bodies. Like our bodies can produce all the neurotransmitters and hormones that we need to be healthy. And then so long as we're making healthy choices, we're not going to need this external thing. And these external allopathic medicines and pills and shots, they have a time and place, but it's an emergency situation.
Right.
It's not supposed to be a dependency.
Exactly.
And so to your point, it's funny that you said, oh, the people who had a comorbidity, like being obese is a comorbidity.
Mhm.
Like you have a higher chance of dying if you're fucking obese. So that's the first thing to get in order. You have a higher chance of dying if you're not getting vitamin D. In Africa, guess what? They can't afford to be fat. Right? And they're in the sun a lot.
Yeah.
They're like out living their lives. So yeah, they're not getting COVID. And but I look at me, it's like I consider myself a very sharp person, but I was in the fog of like, oh, just do the easy thing, trust it. And honestly, there's a lot of social pressure.
Yeah, so much.
There's so much social
Here,
pressure.
especially California.
Especially California. There's so much virtue signaling around this
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm not saying that there's not space for legit disagreement. Like it was a confusing time. It was hard to know what was the truth about COVID at that time.
Yep.
But it didn't even feel like there was space for discussion. It felt
No.
unsafe to disagree.
Yeah,
And
it was.
It was.
You couldn't
yeah.
eat at a restaurant if you didn't have your card.
And you could get like basically canceled within your community for not doing it.
Yeah.
And that it almost felt like a cancellation of free thinking and speaking. And um
It's ruined like families, man.
mm,
Like I've heard of stories of like people not like being able to see their grandkids or like their grandkid or like their kid. People don't want to take their kids around their parents, so their grandparents, because one was either vaccinated or unvaccinated. I'm like, how did we ever get to this divide?
yeah.
Like, this is your family, man.
Mhm.
You're gonna let this Dr. Fauci like prescribed injection or like recommended injection, I suppose it's not prescribed, like separate you and your family? Like,
Mm.
what? Going back to the basics, like your family is like your core, you know? Like, sure, some people don't get along with their families and abusive relationships and whatever, but like how are we gonna let this like external thing like come between us and like literally break us apart? I don't know. To me, that's just like mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite reels that you did was actually about the amount of vaccinations that newborns get and how that's accelerated over the years.
Yeah, that was recent.
Yeah, it was a recent reel, and I looked at it. You could just see side by side the pictures, and maybe we'll show it on the YouTube version of this podcast. It was alarming, like, and the amount of heavy metals in these things. It's like we're putting that into people from the jump, like the
Yeah.
moment they come out of the womb. So, yeah, I'm curious when you like we talked about this idea of being awake, and sometimes awake sounds too spiritual, but just paying attention,
Yeah, yeah.
just paying
Just
attention
like
to like
not going blind through life.
yeah, like, and asking questions about, "Oh, what are the implications of this?" So when you come across something like that, how does it feel for you when you see this and you see how widespread it is, but it feels like most people are not actually even asking questions about it?
I mean, to me, it's just like mind blowing. But it's also mind blowing that like the average person is taking one prescription drug, at least one prescription drug a day. Um, like when I was diagnosed with my autoimmune disease, they told me that I was gonna have to take like this injection in my stomach every 2 weeks for the rest of my life. And I remember they were like, "Hey, do you want to like, do you want us to do your first one? Like, do you want us to do it right now?" And this at UCLA just down the road. Or do you want to like take it home and like we'll give you a video to watch and show you how to do it? And I was like, yeah, I'll take this home. Like, thank you. I actually remember like going to my car and just like crying. I was like, dude, like this has like so many. This is gonna restrict my life in so many ways now. Like if I ever want to travel, I have to like carry this thing in like an ice pack and like all this like silly stuff. And I was like, there's just no way like my life is like meant to be like this. Like how come all these other people can run around and be fine and like I'm stuck with like this is like gonna keep me alive and healthy. um and yeah, so it's just like when you compare, I'm just again I'm so fortunate, like I've always had that mindset, but like when you just look back and there's a lot of stuff like kind of circulating the internet about like how healthy people were in the 50s and 60s, like how obesity and stuff was like so low. You know, there's like pictures of people like at the beach and stuff, and there's like no one obese. And it's just like we just need to like almost like go back in time and just forget all of like I don't want to say forget about it, but like the convenience of our modern lifestyles is just like it's too much. Like it's literally like too much. Now, I mean, now you see like the Apple Pro or the what is it, the Vision Pro, and
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just like so much. Like I have every Apple product, but I don't think I'll get that one. It's just like it's just too much. Like why? So yeah, I don't know. Like I've just been very fortunate to see like the change over time. And again, I don't know if it was like going back to like walking through schools and like seeing how bad it was for people, or just ever since like a young age and realizing that we don't all necessarily like need these things to live like a happy life. In fact, like most of us probably don't. Um, yeah. So that's the best way I could sum that up.
Yeah. How did you cure your autoimmune disorder, or how did you manage it?
If you take my blood, like I still would test positive for HLA-B27. And it was a number of things. Certainly, I think so one of the things that kind of like brings me back is like the very first time I had like the health condition. it was called iritis. So it's like arthritis in your eye. It's brutal. Like you literally go blind. You can't see like this far in front of your face. Fortunately, I only had it in one eye at a time, but I've had it in both eyes multiple times. And when I had that, went to the doctor, and well, first it took like 3 days to go there. I was like, Mom, like I think there's something in my eye. I was really young at this time. Like, hey, I think there's something in my eye. She's like, oh, if it's worse tomorrow, like, well, I'll take you in. And then the next day I woke up and I was like, Mom, my eye's like really hurting. She's like, oh, like there's probably just something in there. It'll come out. And then like the third day, I like walked to my mom. I was like one eye like this, and I was like, Mom, I can't open my eye. And I opened it. It was just like as red as your eye can possibly get, and it started dropping tears. And my mom's like, oh my god, like we need to do something. So she takes me in. They like give me all these eye drops. You basically get put on this like I think it was taking like 4 different eye drops, and you just get like put on this like all these different time intervals, like this one like every 4 hours, this one like every hour and a half, and then another one to dilate your eye to relieve the pressure. So I was like taking all these, and I was like, why is this happening? Like, what is this? And they're like, oh, like this is generally caused by stress. And at that time, I was in high school, maybe. And I was like, dude, I'm in high school. Like, I don't have any stress in my life. Like, I'm like smoking weed. like there's nothing stressful. Um, and then it happened a couple years later, and then the autoimmune disease I have is called ankylosing spondylitis. So it's essentially my spine is like fusing together. Um, and that started happening a lot when I was like doing bodybuilding. So a couple times with the eyes, and then I got into the bodybuilding, and then I just like had unbearable pain in my back, like wasn't able to walk. It would take me like 10 minutes in the morning to like put on a pair of pants and a pair of socks. And then when I moved out to here to UCLA, or when I moved to California, UCLA was the one that diagnosed me when I had the eye problem again. They're like, hey, have you ever had this in the past? I was like, yeah, I have. Like, I have had the eye problem multiple times. They're like, we should test you. They tested me, and then that's when they told me I should take the injection. So I kind of like looked back at all those years of like all the symptoms I had. um, and I don't think that I was like significantly stressed. I think I'm like more stressed as I'm older, as I grew older. But I definitely do think that stress had probably played a part when I was younger as well. And then there's like a number of things that I was eating that I thought were healthy as like a kid, because they were like home cooked meals. I mean, gluten, for example. Like my dad he does like a ton of work in Europe, so especially specifically Italy. So like he loves Italian food, and fortunately for being his son and his kids, like he would make really like authentic Italian dishes back home in America that he like fell in love with in Italy. So like we ate really good like Italian food, but I was eating like pasta probably like 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week maybe. So just eating tons of gluten, and like the wheat in Europe is significantly better than the wheat in America because we spray ours with a bunch of shit. And my dad didn't know that, you know what I mean? Like he just like noodles or pasta is pasta. It's just like I'm sure it's better. I'm sure he thought it was better in Italy, but he would like buy what we could afford, and it wasn't like the super organic, gluten free, nothing like that. It was just like pasta noodles. Um, so I think for me, eliminating stress, finding out like what foods um, cause inflammation in people, um, those are like certainly the two biggest things. But then I was actually just talking to somebody about this last night, who also has like the same autoimmune disease as me, except just like connected with people over the internet. And um, I was asking this individual, what impacts like she had thought like were making a difference for her, because she like let me know this like fact about, so this disease like ankylosing spondylitis, like the reason your spine is like fusing together is because it's like actually trying to grow a new spine, which is like just the body's way of naturally wanting to heal, which is like crazy because it kind of like dials back to everything. But unfortunately it's like fusing together, so it's not really beneficial. um but it's like trying to do something that your body's trying to do something that it thinks it's helping. Um, so yeah, I was talking to her, and I was like asking her a lot about like movement too. Because I've just naturally always moved my body a ton. I've played all these sports. I've done like I always move my body significantly more than like most people. So I was like, I don't know if I was just like, if that was helping me too. I just didn't realize it because it was so normal for me. But I think like people with, I mean, everyone should be moving their body, right? Like it might be the number one cause of like death now is like a sedentary lifestyle. I mean, it's like heart disease and all that stuff too, but it's like due to just simply not moving our bodies. Um, so yeah, I think like moving your body is essential for everything, like mind, body, like health, everything, life.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you had a choice point where either you could have been dependent on, it sounds like a shot that you would need to be taking regularly to live,
Hmm.
to manage your autoimmune condition, or you could actually look at the way that you were living your life and look at the things that you were putting in your body
Hmm.
and change those things. And the clear thing is there's a choice to be made, and you made a
Yeah.
choice to change your lifestyle, which is harder in the short term but better in the long term. Whereas putting something in your body is easier in the short term, much harder in the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole point about being aware, it's about being aware that there is a choice. And it's a shame because it's kind of sensitive to talk about this stuff because sometimes it feels like there's not a choice. Like when you're scared and you have this diagnosis from a doctor and you're told what your chances of living are and they offer this thing, it just feels like, oh yeah, I'm choosing between life and death. But no, often at times there's a choice between one life and another life. And it's a life where you medicate yourself versus a life where you change your lifestyle. And you chose the latter.
Yeah. Fortunately for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what do you think besides just the health benefits of mastering a different lifestyle that allows you to live without medicating yourself? What else do you think it did for you? Like making that choice, like
Um,
mentally, emotionally?
yeah, yeah. I definitely like felt like it gave me like a sense of like power. With the whole, going into a doctor and like them telling you this is what it is. Like I think they call it white coat syndrome or something like that. White coat power. I think it's like white coat syndrome. Essentially, it's like, you know, we prioritize doctors like so high because we all know that they study so hard for so long. And I'm not trying to take anything from them by any means. Like they deserve that credit. But once you like followed the money on kind of everything, you realize that like doctors, just like the DSM-5, there's another book for like doctors and writing like prescriptions for people. They like categorize them with X, Y, and Z condition, and then you take this to fix it. Like that's just how they're trained. So once you realize that, and like the solution in standard medicine is like always a prescription. It's never a lifestyle change. Then you just want to like reconsider everything. I mean, if you're the kind of person that like me and you just like question things. And once you realize that, you're like, oh, maybe there is another option. Um, just like with the vaccine too, it's like, what happens if I don't? Like, do I like, and like I told a lot of people I did just because like I didn't want to deal with the drama. Like it was just like, oh, like you want to come to this party? Like, yeah, sure, yeah, I got vaccinated, like of course.
Mm.
So there's just the divide, and you just have to know that there's really another option. Like almost with everything in life. Like there's always two options. There's like it's never a one-way street, and um, you just gotta like instinctually like do what you feel is best. And I think that's the most important thing because again, like making the decision, it has like just given me the power to like realize that I can do it on my own without the help. And I think even just like that confidence alone is good for, yeah, your mind, your body, your intuition, like in the world, is just like having that the confidence. Like confidence is, especially like as you being a coach, like I'm sure you've experienced a lot of people lacking a lot of confidence. And that's just like I think it goes tenfold throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah. And if you're lacking the confidence in your own ability to make decisions about your body, that's going to show up other places in your life because where else are you giving away your authority to
Mhm.
someone else, whether it's to an employer who's giving you a shitty job that you don't want to do, or a doctor who's giving you a final solution to a problem that has an intermediate solution, like just making some lifestyle changes. And to your point, it's like this white coat syndrome. Obviously, doctors should be held in super high regard, but we shouldn't treat them as experts on everything.
Right.
Because ironically enough, many doctors are experts on medicine, they're not experts on health.
Yeah.
And it's two different things. Because I actually can't think of a single time that I went to a doctor and they asked me first, what's your mindfulness regimen? What foods are you fucking eating? What's
Yeah.
your exercise regimen? It's like immediate, here's symptoms, here's pill. And I think they're supposed to be a last defense, not the first one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. I was one of the I think it was probably even one of like the first videos that I ever made. It talked about because like that was like my perception of like the healthcare industry is like, okay, I went there, they tested me positive for this disease, they gave me an injection. It was literally there was no other option. It was like, here's this, we do it or you do it. Like
Mhm.
that was like what I was told. And for me, that was like detrimental. And then I knew that doing all this research and whatnot, like I could change things with food. So um the fact that if you look back, I think the average doctor has like two 2 to 4 like hours of like nutrition study like under their belt. Like they know every pharmaceutical drug, but they don't know anything about food.
Mm.
And it's like that should be an eye opener for anyone.
Yeah.
Like these guys know every like what drug to prescribe for every symptom that you have, but they don't know what foods that we should be eating. Like
Yeah.
to me, like that said it all.
Yeah.
Um, and then you take, then you just factor that into like exercise and like mindfulness and yeah, I think it like paints a pretty clear picture at that point.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's like you don't treat a specialist in one area as a specialist in all areas.
That's another really good point too, because um like okay, so when I was having my iritis, for example, like the um the doctor that I would go to see for that for specifically eyes, and there's doctors that study 12 years to just know everything about the human eye, which thank God, like they saved my life in both of my eyes every time I had to deal with it. So I'm super, super thankful for them. Again, this is another reason I would go to the doctor. Like if you're about to lose your vision, like go to the doctor.
Of course.
Like don't mess around. Like you're not gonna be able to eat a banana and that goes away. But yeah, so like it's really interesting because like every doctor that has like their field of study, they generally think like that's the most important like part of your body. So
Mhm.
like a neurosurgeon might think that like the brain is the most important part of the body, and like you know what I mean, like for every part of the body there's just like a different doctor that prioritize that because that's what they've learned for 10 or so years, and that's what they've studied, so they think it's like the most important. Like a hand, like my brother like cut his hand, got like sucked into a lawnmower.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. But like that guy that has done like 1,000 hand surgeries, like he could probably write you a book about why your hand's like the most important part of your body. So it's like everyone has, their niche or their little market, which is like very important because we need specialists in everything for all the different stuff that can happen to us. But like I think it's also really, really important that we like take a step back and we like realize that we're a whole human. So we have like,
Mhm.
we have to take care of our body. We have to take care of our mind. We have to take care of like everything from head to toe. Like we can't just prioritize like one thing over another. And that's the thing with doctors, like you were mentioning, is like they all kind of know one thing really well, but they don't all know. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't cut out all of them, but they don't all know like nutrition. They don't all know like what's the best exercise. Another like really interesting statistic is like the number of people that work in hospitals that are overweight or obese.
Yeah.
It's like every time I go, I'm like every nurse walking around the hallway, I'm like, not everyone, but a lot of them. I'm
Yeah.
like, like these people are telling me how I should live my life.
For real, and it's a touchy subject, but I don't want to take holistic health advice from someone who's not holistically healthy.
Yeah.
I might take specialist advice, like, if they're an ophthalmologist and I'm having eye issues and I need them to fix my eye issue specifically, sure, I'll talk to them about my eye issue. But if I see that they're 30 pounds overweight, I'm not going to ask them for what their lifestyle regimen is. It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
And I think that's why people like you are important, because clearly you're someone who is healthy, you're in good shape, you take care of yourself. So whereas you're not going to be able to tell someone specifically what to do for some cardiac issue, you can tell them what systems level changes they can make in their life to live with more vitality and health. So like we need both the specialists and the practitioners to have a healthy world. And I think right now, I think we've under indexed on practitioners and we've over indexed on specialists,
Mhm.
because we jump straight to the specialist and not to the practitioner or the nutritionist or the person who understands the more general system. I remember when I first went through my awakening around health, I was like, holy shit, the world is so fucked. The water's polluted, the air is polluted, the earth is polluted. They put glyphosate on the vegetables, and the cows are being fed this garbage, and
Yeah.
the air is polluted. And I looked at my water, and then you can look up your local water supply, like what pollutants and nasty carcinogens in it. And I was like, this is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And honestly, it cost me many hours and thousands of dollars to just get all the basics in order, like getting water filters and all this stuff. And I see that you have this glass water bottle. And I think there's obviously something to be said for the fact that you invest in the short term to get long term payoffs. So it's
Mhm.
maybe more expensive to buy the nice Mountain Valley water.
Yeah.
But you know what's expensive? Like, having a heart disease later in life, or having cancer prematurely.
Mental. Mhm.
I'm curious, how do you personally, what's your mental model for spending a lot of time and energy on your health? Because I feel like it can almost feel overwhelming when you first become aware of just how backwards we are when it comes to health. And it can almost feel like, why even bother? I'm just going to drink tap water, buy
Yeah.
non-organic meat, buy the cheapest vegetables available. So how do you even like know where to start if it can feel overwhelming at times?
Yeah, and it is overwhelming. And I think it's one of the things is like you can't be perfect, right? So you everything that's like impacting our health, it's there's so many things like you said, like the water, the food, the air, the EMFs, like right now, like the electricity like floating through the air, the wavelengths and what everything.
We're dying to make this podcast.
Yeah.
But EMFs are literally radiating our brains. The
Yeah.
EMFs are electromagnetic
I mean,
frequencies.
Bluetooth,
So like electronics emit them all the time. And it's like no matter what, there's gonna be
yeah.
something impacting you.
Yeah, and there's like definitely things that you can do for every aspect of life. Um, but like you can't stress yourself out over it, because at that point too, like stress is like horrible for your health too. So in high amounts, like over being like always being in a stress state is literally detrimental for your health. So it's like, do what you can, do what you know, and like especially with my content, I like put out a bunch of different stuff kind of in every avenue. And like I promise you I'm not perfect in everything, but I do like I take a lot more steps than most people do, because I've been in a place where I couldn't see and I couldn't walk, and I don't ever want to be there again. So like I'll do more probably than most people, because like I've experienced the flip side of that. And I think like, I don't think if I ever had all those health issues that I would be as crazy as I am today. Um, but they could happen later in life. So it's like, why not start taking like some precautions now and start like slowly eliminating things? It's not like tomorrow you have to use all your devices on like a wired cable and, like only eat food from your garden. Like, you don't have to take it like that extreme. But I do believe that the more you do now, like the better off you'll be like down the road. 100%.
Mhm.
100%.
And I would say even the better you'll feel in the short term.
Oh, 100%.
Because honestly, just fixing your water situation and choosing higher quality food will make your body just feel better on a day-to-day basis. So it's not even something you gotta wait 60 years to see the impact of.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone can start doing that tomorrow. And it really like everyone's caught up in this idea that it costs more to eat well, and it does to an extent, but like you can eat pretty damn well for pretty cheap. Like you get some organic chicken and like your basic like vegetables and carbs, like you can eat like pretty cheap. Like I haven't even like finished it yet, but I was like writing a video about French fries, and I don't want to like give it away because I actually really like this one. But for example,
Please don't tell me I can't eat them, man.
no.
Okay,
So like
good.
I just talk about like it'll come out soon. But basically I bought a potato, like an organic sweet potato, and I bought a small fry from McDonald's. It'd be like one of the last times you'll ever catch me in a McDonald's drive-thru, but I needed it for the sake of this video. Dude, the fries were $4.26 or something like that. Like a little fry, like the paper, like the little
Oh, yeah.
white paper bag. I was like, $4. Like people say like healthy food is more expensive, and I just bought McDonald's fries for like, dude, there's like 25 fries in there. Like it's not that much. And then I bought like a sweet potato like this big for I think it was like $2. So it's like half the price. I mean, sure, yeah, it requires a little bit of effort, like to prepare it, and a little time, like so you're mostly probably paying for the convenience of the McDonald's food because it doesn't cost a fraction of the cost of the potato to make. Like they're doing it in such high quantities. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, when I was like, wait, this fry cost in the weight comparison too was like the fries would probably weigh half, if not less, than the weight of the potato. So the whole idea that it costs more to eat healthy is, I don't know if that's like entirely true, depending on which way you go about it. Like, okay, you can compare like a dollar cheeseburger to like a steak, of course, but you can like eat affordably, like pretty well. Like you can start making changes tomorrow without busting your bank for sure.
Dennis, thank you so much for being an advocate for true health. Thank you so much for opening people's eyes to a lot of the ways in which we're all harming ourselves and we're all allowing ourselves to feed into societal industry narratives around the things that we need to do and things we need to put in our bodies. And I look forward to a world where it's easy to talk about this stuff because it's just obvious to everyone. So thank you for the work that you're doing. I think it's really important. I love the backstory that you have about why you care about this and the lunches that are in schools and how we're feeding our kids bodies and their minds. It really needs to change. So thank you for doing your part, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me too. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, man. Where can people learn more about you?
Mostly Instagram right now. I'm kind of on the other channels as well, like the TikTok and YouTube shorts, but like Instagram is like where I'm the most active just for like the purpose of DMs and stuff. And then there's like a newsletter there on my Instagram as well. And yeah, that's about it now. For now, I'm still bouncing around, trying to find a long-term place. So hopefully lock that in pretty soon, but I'll most likely be on the West Coast.
Cool. And his Instagram is fire. So go ahead and follow it. And could you give us the handle for the viewers?
Yeah, so Denny, DENNY, and then underscore DURE. So Denny Doer.
Awesome. Oh, that's how it's pronounced. Doer.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the way I pronounce it, but it comes off like different ways. So yeah.
That's the most important question you've answered this whole thing. So thanks a lot, bro.
Yeah, you bet, man.
Appreciate
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Of course, man.